Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to look at EFS. So what is EFS? Well, EFS stands for Elastic File System, and it's a file storage service for Amazon's Elastic Compute Cloud or EC2 instances. So it's similar to EBS, except where you've got EBS, you can only mount your virtual disk to one EC2 instance, and that's just the way it works. You cannot have an EC2 instance, two EC2 instances sharing an EBS volume. However, you can have them sharing an EFS volume. So EFS is an easy way to use and provide a simple interface that allows you to create and configure file systems quickly and easily. And with the EFS, storage capacity is elastic, growing and shrinking automatically as you add and remove files, so your applications have the storage they need when they need it. So it is actually really cool. Basically, if you provision an EFS instance, it will just grow automatically. So you could put like a 1 terabyte file on there, and then add another terabyte. You don't need to pre-provision storage like you do with EBS. So EFS is it's great for basically file servers. It's a great way to share files between different EC2 instances. So as always, the best way to learn EFS is to go in and start using it. What we're going to do is we're going to create two little EC2 instances. We're going to run a bootstrap script on them to install some tools as well as Apache. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go and mount this, our var www.html directory to an EFS mount point. And then that way we only need one copy of our website, or our website will be stored on EFS. And when we go and update or make changes to it, we're just those changes are replicated automatically across all our EC2 instances. So if you've got the time, please join me in the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS Management Console. I'm currently in the London region. Let's go ahead and provision our EFS cluster. So you'll find EFS under storage, and we're going to go in and provision our EFS file system. So let's go ahead and create our file system. In here, we can see the 3 different availability zones that's going to be spread across. It is going to go into our default security group within our default VPC, and you will need to remember that for a bit later. Let's go ahead and hit next. And in here we can add in our tags. We don't need to add any in there. This is quite new, enable lifecycle management. So just like how we have lifecycle policies on S3, we also have this with EFS. And essentially you've got different policies in here. So if your files haven't been accessed in the last 14 days or 30 days or 60 days or etc., it'll automatically move them over to EFS infrequently accessed storage class, which is cheaper. I'm not going to do that because we're going to delete this almost straight away. In here we've got our throughput mode. We're going to just use bursting. We don't need provision throughput. Same with performance. It's just going to be a single web page that we're putting on here. So we're going to do general purpose and not max IO. And I am going to enable encryption of my data, and I'm just going to use this KMS master key. It's going to make one for me called Elastic File System. Let's go ahead and hit next, and we'll go ahead and hit create file system. So that can take about 4 or 5 minutes to go in and create your file system. You will see it in here that it's the mount target state is creating. This will change to available in about 4 or 5 minutes. Let's go over to our EC2 instances. I'm going to go in and provision our EC2 instances. So let's go ahead and launch our instances. We're going to do an Amazon Linux 2 AMI. I'm going to do a T2 micro, and I'm going to change the number of instances in here to 2. And then I'm going to give it this bootstrap script. So this is the bootstrap script in here. Essentially all we're doing is running a yum update. We're installing Apache. We're starting the Apache service. We're making sure Apache comes back on if our EC2 instance restarts. And then we're installing the Amazon EFS utils tool. And that will allow us to mount it a bit later to our file system to our EC2 instances. So grab that, copy it into your clipboard, and then just paste it in here. And then we'll go ahead and hit next to add our storage. I'm going to leave everything else as default. I'm going to drop this into my web DMZ security group, and then we're going to go ahead and launch it, and make sure you have access to your key pair because you will need to SSH into these EC2 instances. They're now launching. While we're waiting for those to launch, let's go over to our security group. So if you remember, we provisioned our EFS file system into our default security group, and EFS is going to, or our web servers are going to communicate to our file system using the NFS protocol. So we actually need to open this up on our inbound firewall rules. So let's go in here and hit edit, and you can see I've actually already got this one in, but we may as well just add it in manually. So you just click in here, scroll down to NFS, and then it's on port 2049. And to do that, you just type in SG and then select your web DMZ and go ahead and hit save. And then you should be able to see that you've got your NFS firewall rule in here. So it's allowing NFS protocol into our default security group from our web servers. And if you don't do this, the lab isn't going to work. So don't forget to do this. Let's go back over to our EFS and see if it's up online to our Elastic file system. See in here that my mount target states are now all available, so it is good to go. Before we go in and mount this, let's go and open up, let's go over to EC2, and we want to grab the public IP addresses of our 2 running instances. So I'm going to select this one first. I'm going to copy this into my clipboard. I'm going to type SSH EC2 and then -user and then @ and then paste my public IP in there, and then it's called my London key pair. And I'm going to hit yes, and then I'm going to elevate my privileges to root. I'm going to clear the screen. Let's go over to our var www HTML directory and just make sure it exists. If it exists, that means that Apache has been installed, so we're all good to go. Then you just need to go back a directory, so go back to your www directory and go ahead and clear the screen. Let's grab our second IP address. So the second one is this one here, and we're going to do exactly the same steps. So just copy this into our clipboard, go back over, and then need to go back over to my other tab. And then in here, I'm going to type in SSH EC2 and then -user, and then @ and then enter in my public IP address -i, and then it's my London key pair. Again, I'm going to type yes, elevate your privileges to root, so sudo su. Just clear the screen just to make it easier to see. Then we're going to go over to our cd var www and then HTML directory. Make sure Apache is installed, which it is. And then go back a directory. It's very important that you always go back a directory to our www. So we've got our 2 tabs open, both in our www, and we've got separate internal IP addresses. Let's go back over to our browser, and we're going to go back over to EFS, and we're going to mount our Elastic file system to our EC2 instances. Amazon make this very easy for us. All we need to do is scroll down to here and click on the mount instructions from a local VPC. That will then give us the command. We've already ran this command in the bootstrap script, so that has already been done. And then what we need to do is go down here. There's 2 different commands here using the mount helper. This one will do it, and it means that there will be no encryption in transit. We don't want that. We want to make sure our files are encrypted in transit because we've also got encryption at rest turned on. So we want to use the TLS command in here. You won't need sudo because we're already at root. So just copy that into your clipboard. Go back over to your browser and click on one of the tabs. I'm going to paste it in here, but we don't want it to go to the EFS directory. We want it to go to our var www and then HTML directory. So HTML. And then when you hit enter, it can take like a few seconds. If it hangs for more than a minute, it means your security groups aren't working. That's typically what it is. Again, I'm going to paste the same same command into the other tab, and we're going to change it to my var www and then HTML directory. And then in here, I'm going to type ls. So you can see my HTML directory. If I go into it and then type ls, there's nothing in there. So let's create a file. So we're going to do echo. I'm going to make a little web page. So HTML, and then do our body, and we'll do our header, and we'll say hello EFS gurus. And then I'm going to end my header, end the body, and then we're going to end the HTML. So end HTML. Close out our quotations, and then we're going to output this to our index, then .html. And then if we type in ls, that's created the file. If we type cat index.html, you can see the contents of the file in there. We go back over to our other tab, type in ls, we can see our HTML directory. We go into the HTML directory and type ls, we can see index.html. If we cat it, index.html, you can see the contents of the file. Now we can go in on this EC2 instance and we could change the file. So we could go nano index.html, and then instead of saying hello EFS gurus, we end it, keep being awesome cloud gurus. And then I'm just going to hit Control X, yes, and then hit enter.
I'm going to change my tab over to my other EC2 instance. And if I do cat index.html, you can see that they're all reading from the same file. So it's all on the same file system. So you make a change on one, that change is automatically replicated out to our other web servers. You can go and visit the website we just created by going to the public IP address, and you can check it out there. I'm not going to. What we are going to do is, it can take a while to delete your file systems in EFS. So I'm going to go in and just terminate the EC2 instances first. So we just do that by going up here, Actions, Instance State, and then we'll go over and hit Terminate, and hit Yes, Terminate. And then we'll go over to EFS, and then we're going to go into this EFS Elastic File System. Going to delete the file system, and you just grab the name of the file system in here, copy it into your clipboard, and then paste it in here, and it says it's a destructive action that cannot be undone. So let's be destructive in our AWS environment. So that is it. It's really, really simple. EFS is a way of having common file systems or storage using NFS between your different EC2 instances. Very easy to set up and get going, and then you don't need to worry about syncing files between your EC2 instances because they're all on the same file system. So let's go and have a look at my exam tips.
So what are my exam tips? Well, EFS supports a Network File System version 4 or NFS v4 protocol. With EFS, you only pay for the storage that you use. There's no pre-provisioning required. It's not like EBS where we have to, say, hey, I want an 8 gig EBS volume. We basically just pay as we go. It can scale up to the petabytes, and it can support thousands of concurrent NFS connections. And then data is stored across multiple availability zones within a region. And in terms of the consistency model, it's always read after write consistency. So you're almost at the end of this section of the course. We're going to have a very quick lecture looking at placement groups in the next lecture, and then we're going to summarize everything that you've learned. So if you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.